So I've been ruminating on the concept of nostalgia for a couple of months, probably, if I'm being really honest. And it's kind of come at me in pieces, right? So, one of my favorite podcasts, and if I say I've listened to a podcast, full disclosure, it's always What Now with Trevor Noah. It's my favorite podcast. It's what I'm listening to. And over the course of the last year, he's talked a lot about like shifting cultural shifts, shifts in music, shifts in movies, and all these things. And I'll come back to those points more specifically, but I've just been almost taking note of it in the back of my mind. And then I don't know, a month or two ago, probably longer if you use TikTok versus Instagram or Facebook, right? There was that growing trend of what were you like in the 90s? It was all to the song Iris by the Goo Goo Dolls, and all the celebrities would like share this montage of videos of them from the 90s. And there's something about the 90s, right? People for whatever reason, like, man, it was better in the 90s. And so I started kind of trying to figure out why, what was so great about the 90s, even though I too was like, man, the 90s were great. The 90s were great, you know? And there was a period we were doing consultation at the coffee place in Beaver Dam, and I was on my way there. It had just been a really heavy week. I don't even remember anything in particular that had happened, and a song came on the radio. You Get What You Give by the New Radicals, which came out around 1997. And I instantly had this flashback, this back in time of riding around with my now husband and my uncle's brand new white Dodge Neon. Why that stands out to me, I don't know. We're just bombing around and listening to that song basically on repeat. And so the song came on my radio and I found myself crying. Why am I crying? Like, this is so crazy. It's just a song. It's not even a sentimental song. I don't know if you know what the song is, but it's not some like sappy.
Absolutely.
I had this realization that in whatever I was dealing with, whatever felt really heavy that week, I was longing for a time, a place, even an experience or relationship with the people around me that no longer existed. I was homesick for a time and period that no longer existed and that I can't get back. And that
Yes.
was that was it was actually a beautiful realization of like, "Oh, that's what I'm feeling," and also really hard to sit with when it's not something I can get back.
Yes. Yeah, it's a little, like, overpowering when that happens, like, the feelings it feels like it's almost like a blurry screen. You can see it, but you can't get the clear picture of what it was like back then, and it's something that we're so connected to. Um, do you think thinking back to that, do you think you miss what was going on, or do you miss, like, who you were back then?
Because it was something that I took time to really think about after having that realization, I it's multi-layered. In some regards, I missed the simplicity of a time when there was no responsibility. I wasn't an adult yet. I couldn't even drive. That's why I was in my uncle's Dodge Neon. And there's no weight of awareness of the world around you, right? As a teenager, naturally pretty egocentric and what's going on for you. There was no external weight of the world. And also my uncle is one of my favorite humans in the entire world, and he lives in Florida now. And so don't get to see him or talk to him very often, despite him being a really important part of my life. And so I think it was just this layer of I miss the comfort of my family. I miss the comfort of ignorance in the world. I miss and it was just like I said, we can't go back there. I'm curious, do you ever feel like that? Because it literally felt like homesickness to me, like deep, deep homesickness. Do you ever experience moments of that?
I do. I like my logo and a lot of my things in my office are very centered on like artifacts, not expensive things, but just things that represent family or things of that to me. So I really have a deep connection with nostalgia in general. I feel like I notice it like songs, obviously, I feel like are transporting. They're like a time machine. They can bring us back to a place where we were young and carefree and the world wasn't so heavy and overwhelming. I also feel like for me, smell is really
Yeah.
transporting. As a parent, I think one of the most emotional things, and this is going to sound so silly, is I always wear this body spray. I have a hard time with perfume. Nothing really sticks with me and lasts all day. So I have this one body spray that sticks with me, and it's just a fresh smelling one. And my children, we went somewhere. I don't know where it was. It was in a hotel room. We were walking in, and I don't know if they're air freshener or their cleaning supplies or whatever, but it was a similar scent. And my youngest son walked in and he's like, "Were you in here before?" And I'm like, "No, why?" And he's like, "It smells like you in here." And I'm like, that warmed my heart because I know for the rest of their life after I'm gone, they're going to smell that and think of me. And that always like makes me really emotional just thinking about it. It's kind of a silly thing, but it warms my heart to know like there's things bigger than me that are going to remind them of me.
I don't find it silly at all. And you named music, and music really does resonate with me a lot too. It can take me back very, very quickly. And sense also, sensory things, right? So my sense of smell, I also find really memory invoking. Not to keep dwelling on my uncle, but a man can walk by me and I'll be like, he wears Uncle John's cologne. Like, smells like him. Or even, we kind of alluded to some complex family dynamics in one of our previous episodes. So my aunt and uncle have always been this place of comfort for me, and their house, despite having moved 20 plus times in the last 20 years, probably, well, maybe more like 30 years to be fair, but they've moved frequently, but their house always smells the same. And so when I visit them, again, that scent feels like home, similar to the way that your son described your scent in that hotel room. And every once in a while, my aunt and uncle will send me a blanket
Oh,
and it'll smell like their house. And me and my kids actually fight over it because we want to soak up the scent of their home as much as we possibly can. But it provides actually a sense of home without actually being there, which I
when
think is interesting.
when you just said that, it reminded me of being a child. When I was growing up, I was very scared of things. Weirdly, I was scared of being murdered in the middle of the night by some random killer just walking through the countryside, apparently. I don't know.
Did
Here
you watch Unsolved Mysteries?
No, do I need
Oh,
to?
okay. No, I just thought maybe that was sorry, interruption.
No, I just, I think because my parents made me watch the news all the time, there was always like murders and like mystery people wandering around. I grew up in the 80s, so that, I mean, must have been more relevant back then. But anyways, that attached to me. So when my dad was also a long haul semi driver, so he would be gone for weeks at a time. So when you said that, it reminded me, I used to, as a child, when I was scared, I would go in my dad's closet and take out one of his sweatshirts and I would wear that to bed because it would smell like him. And then that always made me feel safe when I would go to sleep. So I think there is something in the sensory providing like comfort and security when you need it. I keep coming back to this idea of the time machine.
Mhm. Yeah, I actually you talked about, like, finding something that smelled like your dad. Every once in a while, I'll smell something that reminds me of my grandpa, who died when I was 19, and I'm like, "Oh, it smells like grandpa." I just wanna, like, hold
Mm.
it, right? And so I think on some level, for someone who maybe is feeling nostalgic towards a different time period, or more so maybe even more so, like, a longing for something, that might be a way that you can quench that craving, is to
Yeah.
find some scent that reminds you of that time.
Yeah, yeah. I don't it's been a while. I don't even know. My dad didn't necessarily wear a certain cologne. I don't know what the smell was. The weird thing is, like, with that though, like, you don't have to know what it is, but when you smell
When
it,
you
you
smell
just know.
it. Mhm,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Like, I had an uncle who smoked pipes. I don't even know if those are a thing. Not marijuana pipes, but actual tobacco pipes. It was one of those corncob pipes. I don't know if you've ever seen those, but he
Mhm.
smoked a cherry tobacco. And whenever I smell that, it's like, oh, it smells like my Uncle Rick in here.
Yeah.
It's wild how just something that you maybe happen to walk by can throw you off like your whole agenda for the day. Like, because all these feelings start coming up in these memories.
Well, that's such an important thread to pull at, that you can be anywhere, right? And that one scent, that one sight, that one song hits your mind, and suddenly you're in a place where you're like, "How oh my gosh, I'm not okay.
Yeah.
How am I not okay? What just happened?"
I have been really spending a lot of time. I've just had a lot of family time recently. And so I have been spending, like, my family has been joking about writing a book about our family and, like, kind of the crazy stories and stuff. So I have been spending a lot of time actually not writing the book, but journaling about my dad. And I find that really, it's almost like you have to be very conscious of when you're doing it, right? Because I'll sometimes write in between my sessions when I have free time. And all of a sudden I look and I like have 10 minutes and I'm bawling with tears and I have to log on to a session. And I don't know about you, but when I cry, you can tell on my face for hours. I look like, I don't know, my face got dragged out in the sun and sand for hours. It's all puffy and red. So you have to be careful when you plan the reminiscing because it can cause consequences in your to day routine.
Absolutely. As you mentioned, it's like this mental time travel, and so it isn't just it isn't just a remembering or mental experience, it's a physical experience in your body too,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and it can hit really hard.
Yeah. For sure. As we were talking, when you first started, I could feel the warm kind of fuzzies coming over me that happen, where it ultimately turns into, oh, I'm going to cry if you let it get that far. But
Right?
just talking about it can make me kind of have that same sense of feelings going on there.
Mhm. It was really interesting because I had a lot of talking points that I just wanted to bring to this. As I mentioned, I'd been ruminating on it for maybe a blog for a while, but I still did a little bit of, research, what might be some interesting talking points to bring into this. And I think this is what's really interesting. So the word nostalgia has Greek roots, like Greek origins, and I'm reading this, so I wanna make sure I get it right, although I'm probably pronouncing the Greek words wrong. But nostos means return, and algos means pain. And in ancient Greek, the term was coined to describe homesick soldiers.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And
That's
I
really
thought
cool.
that I thought that that was really fascinating when I realized, because I didn't know this when I named that I was feeling homesick for a time and that I was feeling all this nostalgia. I didn't even realize that that was the root of the word period, which was really, really interesting.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, when you say it, it makes sense because, like, the idea of being homesick is really about nostalgia and missing what once was, or missing what, made you feel safe at a time.
Mhm.
Do you, in regards to that, do you feel there are points? You said you were driving towards a meeting that we were having, just to talk about, you know, mental
Work.
health stuff. Do you feel like you're more susceptible to the nostalgia factor at certain points in your life?
I mean, based on my experience, probably when we're struggling or feeling vulnerable, right? You mentioned that sometimes taking back those memories or thinking about the people or places or things that comforted us, if we're struggling, we're looking for some way to comfort ourselves,
Yeah.
right? So
Like
I
self
think,
Go ahead.
no, I would say just like, so we're trying to just find some meaning or some safety in something that might feel uncertain or hard.
Yeah. And I was, as you were saying that, I was thinking self-soothing, finding a way to kind of comfort ourselves
Mhm.
in a moment that maybe feels heavy. I mean, I think if I think about it, for instance, my kids played a lot of sports, and their senior year is a big deal because, they're playing the last games they're going to have. And there's always the nostalgia where you bring out the pictures of them playing and things like that. And that was really heavy to me, the transitions, like transitioning from my children from the high school realm athletics into adulthood and starting the real world and what they want to do. And almost for me as a mom, I'm not going to be needed as much. Now I have to get your permission to talk to your doctor that I have to make the appointment for you for. Like it feels like the nostalgia becomes really heavy at those points and times when maybe a transition is taking place.
I didn't even think of life transitions as an example, and I think you're spot on there. And we could go from very early things, even if you're a parent, kids starting school the first time, right? It's exciting and hard at the same time. You mentioned graduation, and then to, even extend further, um, like retirements and times when we lose parts of our identity because our lives are shifting so dramatically. And so I think life transitions in general are probably opportunities to reflect back, think about what, again, brings comfort and joy and those types of things.
As you were saying that, something occurred to me too. Do you think maybe this transition, I mean, I know like the midlife crisis, right? That is a transition of kind of realizing you're no longer as youthful as you once were, or people are now considering you old instead of young. I get it. I've been called ma'am more times than I appreciate now. But do you think there's an aspect of the midlife crisis where nostalgia comes in? The realization that the memories of what once was is not there anymore. You're no longer that person and you're changing into a place that feels scary or uncertain.
I absolutely. I think sometimes we are longing for versions of ourselves that we maybe knew well, and that then if you're I say we, but I'm talking people in general, right? And then you suddenly find yourself in a space of, I don't know who I am anymore.
Yeah, identity comes into play then too. Who am I in this new version? And in all honesty, identity is an uncertainty is such a big part of these transitions. It's scary. And finding, like, one of my favorite phrases is getting comfortable with the uncomfortable, but that doesn't always mean it feels safe to do that.
And I think what's so important about that is that nostalgia isn't always for good times only. We might find ourselves reminiscing, longing for a period of our lives that were actually really, really difficult, but at least we knew who we were in those moments. At least we knew there was safety in the dysfunction because it was familiar. Does that make sense?
Yeah, the word as you're talking about it, the word that comes up to my head is flashbacks, where, because I consider more, and maybe this is naive, I consider flashbacks more of in a negative connotation as opposed to nostalgia feels a little more in the positive, like, ooh, the happier
Oh.
times. Like I remember when I could wear shorts and, and listen to music and drink beer and not have to worry about getting up in the morning and feeling like crap. Where flashbacks is more traumatizing in my mind. I don't know if that's I don't know what the definition of flashbacks professionally is, but
Yeah, I mean, I guess what was coming more to mind for me even was, if we bring in if we bring in scent back, right?
mhm.
My parents were smokers, and I despise and feel very triggered by the scent of cigarette smoke. Yet the smell of that can still take me back to moments of my childhood that were maybe more difficult, that were more hard to, maybe parts that it's like, oh, that was really hard, right? But it still feels familiar. It still feels like I knew who I was in those moments, if that makes sense? So I don't know that I feel the homesickness towards those moments. Definitely not, but I'm still on this mental time travel to a difficult time in my life.
Well, conversely, with what I was saying before, the way you just reframed that reminds me of almost empowering. If you think back to, like, I endured this, this was me at a different point in time, and I survived things that were difficult. And looking back, I don't really know how I came out of that as well adjusted as I am today, because that was, as an adult, we look back on a lot of our things from our childhood and maybe realize some things were a lot more dangerous or unsafe than we were fully aware. I mean, if I think back to my teenage years and the things that I was doing with my friends, I definitely know there's that aspect.
Early adulthood though, right? You may to look back and recognize that you're not that person anymore and you don't want to be that person anymore, but it felt safer because you knew who you were. Whereas maybe in this midlife, again, there's so much uncertainty that it feels scary and we're wanting to go back to anything that feels familiar because familiarity often feels safe, even if it wasn't actually safe.
Yeah, to kind of piggyback off of what you were saying, I think there's a lot of validity in what you're saying, right? Like, what is the point of class reunions? People reconnect after how many years of not seeing each other. But at the same time, if you look back, I'm sure the majority of people, and I don't want to speak for everybody, but can look back at the high school experience and be like, I was a dork. I did a lot of really silly, weird things. And then look back and have that comfort of those people that were surrounded by you at that time. And that almost feels supportive in itself, as opposed to being where we are in a midlife crisis and not maybe having that support system that, even though I did those silly things back then, those people still liked me.
And that makes me think, even taking that a step further, about what if you're looking back on a version of yourself that you miss and you want back? Because
Absolutely.
like
Like,
maybe it was a better version of you,
yeah.
more confident, someone whatever.
Yeah, if we're I I just had flashbacks of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, where it's like you're floating back in time remembering these things, but you can't participate because you'll mess it all up. Or maybe like Back to the Future. Um, but yeah, if you're aging and you look back at this time and you realize, hey, I had all these goals and I wanted to do these things, or hey, I was a lot nicer back then, that can feel very isolating and alone in your current state, and maybe draw the more like class reunion wanting to go to that, because those people, I mean, there's a chance that those people helped form who you were back then. So maybe that gives you that draw to move back to that place where you used to be.
And even feeling a sense of that version of yourself again.
Yeah. I know I'm not what some people would consider young anymore. And I know that it would you like to go back to my youth, especially with the knowledge I have now. I always say, like, I wish I could be who I am today when I was raising my children, because I would have been a much better mom than I was back then. And so I think there is that part. I maybe miss who I was in some ways back then, but I really wish I had my knowledge back then too.
You can enjoy the beauty of experiencing life and how it changes your outlook on so many things and the way you carry yourself in the world.
Yeah, and absolutely. If I didn't have a lot of, I'm a firm believer that you learn by experiences. So if I wouldn't have went through a lot of the things I did, I probably wouldn't even have the knowledge I have today. So I think there is a sense of that as well. Something that I was thinking about is photography, right? Taking pictures, photo albums. I mean, what we're talking about is sort of the point of photo albums, right? To transport us back to memories and times. Looking through, I have two boys, so they don't really care about memories or photo albums. But the one thing that they really do enjoy is looking at, I'm not going to say they take it out to look at, but if I bring out their baby book with the pictures of them when they were born and their hair and things like that, they always will sit down and look at the pictures. And sometimes they'll engage in questions asking about their birth or whatever was going on at the time. But that's the one time they will kind of travel down the remember when road with me, is looking through photo albums.
I'm curious how old your most recent photo album is. When did you start photo albums?
We're gonna talk about technology now, right?
Yes, we are.
I so again, I have boys. I have two boys that never liked their picture being taken. When they were young, they did, but then they reached a point of, I want to say like middle school, where I feel like they were almost embarrassed of having their picture taken. They didn't like to smile for the camera and
That they
things of
stopped
that.
smiling. Mhm.
So I have a big gap in my kids. I used to take pictures all the time, and I scrapbooked because that was a trend for a while. Scrapbooked through probably like kindergarten for them, but from kindergarten on, everything is on a disc. Or I shouldn't say that. Like their graduation, I printed out stuff, so I have a bunch of pictures. They're in a shoebox. I
Yes.
don't really do photo albums at all anymore.
Yes. So I asked that question. I led you to that question because I think my oldest daughter, her photo albums probably stop at 1. And there's school pictures that have been printed, family pictures that have been printed, but until her high school graduation, we didn't print pictures anymore. They
No,
just live online, they live in the cloud. They, like you said, they live on disks that we don't even have disk drives anymore on our computers. I can't even insert the disk to look at the pictures, right? And we are losing something in that.
I agree. I mean, to extend on what you're saying too, I just actually had a session where I was talking about the changes in childhood from when, like high school, from when we grew up to now. There's a lot of differences. Like when I can't speak for you, but when I grew up, it was more of a unified presence, right? There wasn't other things to do, so we were always in groups, we were always doing things together. Our way of communicating outside of each other was a telephone. Nowadays, you can communicate through video games. Kids also can't they get in trouble easier, honestly. So I feel like technology has kind of become a way for kids to stay connected without having that group effect like we used to as high schoolers and stuff. So I feel like technology has kind of infringed on the memories of the youth a little bit.
We're missing so many shared experiences. Whether it's from sitting down on the couch or table together to look through a photo album, instead, everyone's just scrolling on their personal device, looking at their own photos. Or, as you mentioned, when high school, like, let's go back to the 90s, right? I mentioned earlier the 90s are this target year, right? But really, social media was just starting, maybe with AOL. It was very, very early. The internet wasn't anything close to what it is now. There certainly weren't personal computers in our pockets. And so you had a phone call and you met people places and you had these shared experiences. And we're losing that. But I will say that Gen Z is embracing it a little bit, right? Having an actual digital camera is cool again, and having the pictures printed is cool again, or even Polaroids. They were big again for a little while in the late 2000s. And so I feel to some extent there's this awareness building of maybe some of those things were better.
And this may be my ego talking, but I'm so proud that those things were in our life and they're bringing it back. I do like, I graduated in 1993. So I feel like I really got to embrace the 90s and it was such an enjoyable time. I love, like, even the 80s, I wouldn't want to go back to how I dressed in the 80s, but it was just definitely a much freer time, in my opinion, to be raised. And of course, that could be biased, but also having the experiences of parenting a child and the parameters I had to put on for them to be just playing outside. Or my husband used to ride his bike from the time he got up till dark time and
Mm,
no check in with the parents, nothing. And the reality is there's just a lot more scary things, and I don't know if the scary things are just more aware of now or if there's just more of them in general. But we can't just let our kids do the things that we did in the 80s, which has pulled a lot from what their abilities are. So I'm proud that they're bringing some of the nostalgia back from
yeah.
then.
My understanding is we're actually living in a much safer era and generation. However, we're so constantly informed that it feels less safe, even though it actually is safer. You know,
Yeah.
that causes a whole new level of anxiety and maybe for an additional episode to explore, right? But having your family members on Life 360, knowing where they are at all times, an ability to check in at all times. So then when those things don't happen, we instantly become anxious and we tell ourselves that something bad surely has happened, as opposed to just living and experiencing life. You talked about learning through experience, and we're not experiencing life truly. Even so, I mentioned the podcast I was listening to, and music has changed. Music used to be a little bit more raw, a little less polished, and there used to be something behind it, right? But now music is being made that it can hit and be, instantly recognizable in a 10, 15 second clip, and we're losing the emotional connection that we spoke of earlier to new music.
uh, I love an 80s rock ballad like Poison, and I can't think of anybody off the top of my head, but the big hair heavy metal band that played the slow songs, those were always the ones, when your boyfriend broke up with you, when you were feeling sad. I remember growing up having a cassette tape, which I just recently found out my son doesn't even lived when there was a cassette tape, and that made me cry. But anyways, I used to make like a slow song and a fast song because sometimes I just felt really emotional and wanted to cry. So
Mhm.
I would put that in, and those were always, really healing for me back in the day. And I
Yes.
agree, music has like I love me some grunge music, like Nirvana,
See, I
amazing.
always I always say if I had to pick one genre of music to listen to for the rest of my life, it would be 80s rock.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's not to say that none of new music is good or can be emotionally resonant, but most of it was that powerful message or that connected with people in some way pre social media 15-second clips, right?
Well, and I'm gonna add to that what you're saying too is like is the jumping on the technology. When we grew up, we had our cassette tapes, which was maybe the beginning of the end for radio, right? Like that was a big part of us connecting with music at the time is a song came on and a group of all of you were singing to it, or I remember like blaring music driving to the beach and listening to songs. I don't know if you remember, but cassette tapes could get stuck in the thing,
Yes. Yep.
and my friend had a car and she just had a single one on there. So it was one song on one side and one song on the other. So the
Oh,
really
yes.
popular one on one side and the really never played song on the other. And it got stuck in her car for the whole summer. So the song Civil War by Guns N' Roses
Oh,
memorized because that's what we listened to the
all you could
whole
listen
summer.
to.
So when
Well,
we go to the beach, that's my song because we went to the beach all summer that year.
even as you talked about listening to the radio, I know there are radio stations still out there and plenty of people still listen to them. And also there's Pandora and Apple Music and Spotify, and everyone's listening to their own curated thing. And it's not like, oh, did you hear that song on the radio? Or waiting for your favorite song to come on the radio.
Or getting pissed off when they kept playing the song that you hated. Like there was something to that too. It's hard to learn new music, at least for my age, to learn the new music that's coming out because there isn't a format to necessarily force you to listen to songs you don't want to listen to, which
Right? Or MTV and music videos.
how
You know,
sad were you when MTV said they were done?
right? I mean, MTV hasn't been music videos for a long time.
Granted.
We're really aging ourselves in this episode here, Stacy, but, um, even TV, like, if you wanted to watch a show, you had to watch it live. Maybe you were lucky enough to have a VCR and a blank tape that you could record it, but there was no pausing, there was no rewinding, and actually, as I'm going through the stream of consciousness, that was on one of the episodes of the podcast that I was listening to. They were talking about the Olympics. And the Olympics used to be this truly worldwide uniting experience because one TV station had the rights to airing the footage, and everybody had to watch whatever they were choosing to air at whatever time. So people would watch the Olympics, and the next day they could go to school or go to work and they could talk about that event that they saw, right? We look at the most recent Winter Olympics, and you can stream any event that you want to see at any time, and you can watch only your country, and it's this personalized experience that it's almost not an experience for anybody.
Yeah, because you have nobody to connect to. This is kind of on the same topic. I have, because I'm a reality TV show junkie, I have a reality show that I watch, and there's so much drama going on. I know nobody who watches the show. I'm sitting in all these feelings and discussions that I want to have, but I have nobody to talk to. And I find that on TikTok a lot. A new trend will come on, and in the comments, you'll look at it, and somebody's like, I have nobody to talk to about this. And I think that's like a tragedy in general because
Yeah.
that does bring connection, that does bring bond. It also, we talk in forms of mental health, social anxiety is an aspect, not knowing how to have conversations. These are the things that start start a connection. These are the things that start conversations. They remove that angst of, I don't know what to say, to like, did you see what happened last night? And that morphs into something.
Right, because the did you see what happened last night? You know that the majority of people saw it
Right.
because it was the only thing to watch on TV, and so if they were watching TV, they saw it.
Yeah, I mean, how many times do you remember having to run to the bathroom so you didn't miss a commercial, or during the commercial break so you
Yeah,
didn't miss the any of the show
yeah,
because
you leap
oh,
over the back of the couch to
y-
go as fast as you
yeah,
can. Gotta
jump
get
on the dog.
Mhm.
Because everybody's at school is going to talk about it and you don't want to miss anything that you can't share or just discuss with other people. And I think you're right, that doesn't happen, and there's too many options to bring in the dopamine and stuff. I mean, I know me and you personally had talked recently, it's hard for me to actually even watch TV without doom scrolling at the same time because nothing can hold my interest as much right now.
Yes, because we're used to taking things in now in these 15-second bits and pieces. Even movies, I'm talking about my podcast again, but they were talking about how movies have changed. Movies used to include scenes of the characters doing everyday things, walking down the sidewalk, going to the grocery store, going to work, everyday things that we as the audience could connect to, and we could see pieces of ourselves in the characters, right? I think about the movie Father of the Bride when he's at the grocery store buying hot dogs and buns and he loses his mind because they're not sold in equal quantities and he doesn't need, right? When Steve Martin's just losing his mind. And people can relate to that. Like, I've definitely lost my mind in the grocery store at some point. That those moments are gone. They're now clipped out of movies to get the biggest bang for their buck in the time, and they don't waste their time on filler scenes and filler experiences. And so then we're finding ourselves in places where we can no longer connect to or relate to the characters of the movie.
I is in what you're saying too, from my experience with reality TV, right? When the show starts out, you see everyday average people put in a place. Like if we take Jersey Shore, they started going out to the Jersey Shore and they didn't know each other and they all connected and they lived in this kind of decent house but kind of like stuffed in there, and you just saw the trials and tribulations of drinking and partying and meeting people and being forged into this thing. If you look at it today, it's morphed into going and seeing them in their mansions and them having plastic surgery and driving like these fancy Bentleys and stuff like that. People tend to lose interest by the time it gets to that point unless there's some big drama or scandal that's happening, because you can't relate to them anymore. To some sense, we like to see what that lifestyle is like, but it's nothing that we can relate to. It's nothing that connects us to the show itself anymore.
Yes, it feels so foreign.
Yeah.
And I think all of this lack of connection, this lack of shared experiences is why there's this nostalgia for the 90s, right? Because
Yeah.
we I think thankfully we're starting to recognize what we're missing
Yeah.
and
I
that
think,
maybe there was something better about that time. Plenty that wasn't great and that probably should have changed, but in general when we talk about human connection and human experience, I think we're missing something.
and I don't want to turn this into a conversation on AI, but I think in some sense, the things that have been happening with AI have been truly eye opening for us as individuals. And in the balance of how much is too much, how much is convenience worth missing out on all these things that we're talking about. I mean, how much is having like being able to watch a TV show anytime you want to worth missing out on other aspects, the community and the camaraderie that comes with watching it at the same time. And that's what I feel like the AI is kind of like a symbol of that, right? It's so convenient. It makes everything so much easier. But what are we losing because of it? And I feel in general, like the AI situation has really brought that to a head of people realizing there has to be an end to some of this convenience because it is costing us things like aside from like society and the environment or and people the environmental aspects and things like that, but I think it's a really important notice for society in general. How much is too much? What are we losing to have all of these other things?
One of the biggest things that comes to mind for me on something that we're losing is independent thought and creativity. Even even if you don't even look at AI, the ability to stream our favorite music, to stream podcasts, to always have some type of stimulation happening. I even think about um taking a shower. If you're listening to a podcast or blasting your favorite music while you're in the shower, you're maybe missing an opportunity to be in your own thoughts and have some really deep thinking or inspiration or creativity because you're essentially numbing out to other people's thoughts and other people's things. And we don't know how to sit in our own thoughts anymore.
Absolutely. I do my best thinking in the shower. I'd say I
Yes.
do my best thinking when I don't have paper and pen to write anything down.
Yes.
But I mean, in both of our practices, I mean, I don't know, but I'm assuming mindfulness and being present in yourself and your thoughts is a very big part of mental health in general. Being connected to who you are and how you feel in your body is a big part of being able to be present in those moments. And if we're spending our life floating off listening to, like, if we can't be in silence, how are we that implies we're struggling being comfortable with parts of us or who we are or allowing our self space to be like you said creative.
And you can choose to answer this question, but I also, speak it just figuratively to anyone who's watching or listening. But when was the last time you sat in silence with yourself?
Well, I'm kind of different. I like silence. I get very overstimulated and overwhelmed with chaos, so I tend to be silent a lot. I will say from my experience of those around me, I don't think my husband ever sits in silence. I know my children don't. And talking to them, I impress the importance of it, but I'm pretty sure it's like oh, she's talking again. But I do think there's importance. It just allowing your brain to quiet down for a little bit. That to me, it's a sigh of relief sometimes.
Yes, I used to be notorious for having the TV on if I was working from home, and now there are days where I don't the TV never gets turned on, and I like just sitting in the peace and quiet. Um, I definitely appreciate shower thoughts, as you mentioned, it's where a lot of my deepest thinking comes. But I think about even in small day-to-day moments when maybe it's not necessarily a silent moment, right? But we talked about scrolling while we're watching TV, people scrolling in line at the grocery store, scrolling in line anywhere, right? We don't even have the patience to stand in a line without stimulating our brain. But you see people on their phones at stop and go lights or stop signs. Even in that brief moment, it's I'm stopped at this red light. I'm going to quick scroll and look at something.
Yeah, like, did Marge send me a text while I was waiting? Like,
Yeah,
and everything is about convenience now. And I have a cousin who says this phrase, and I might have said it already, but I own my phone doesn't own me. And I feel like that has really, I know myself, I'm guilty of it. Like I use it, like you said, when I'm waiting in line. And that, as you said that, I was thinking, well, that also can explain why there's a lot of stuff when we have to wait for things like at the grocery store. Let's talk about Walmart. They're notorious for never having enough lines open at the checkout. And I can't tell you how many times I've heard people be angry because they've had to wait. And I mean, I'm not gonna lie, sometimes it is excessive and there should be like more lines open, but at the same time, where is the line between too long and it's acceptable, but we just are so uncomfortable with waiting, we don't know how to manage those feelings anymore.
Yes, I think we see a lot of that. I'll say for me, I am very notorious for doom scrolling. And so I decided that for the summer, the entirety of the summer, outside of posting business content, I all my personal accounts on social media I'm completely closed out of. I also deleted a lot of the games and the apps that I find myself mindlessly playing while I'm watching TV. And what I've found as a result, so it's been 2 weeks, almost 3 weeks that I've been without social media and without those games. And what I've found is I am more present with my family and friends. So we talk about that connection. That's there. I can more fully enjoy the movies or TV that I'm watching. And rather than putting on something that I've already seen that allows me to scroll because I don't want to have to pay attention, I've watched movies that I've never seen before. I'm sleeping better. And in general, I'm experiencing more mental clarity.
That's awesome.
Right. And I think my first week from my typical phone usage to cutting all of that off, I think I reduced my phone screen time by like 86%. It was a ridiculous number. And then even from the first week to the second week, I reduced it by another 50%. And it's hard. I still find myself, I was waiting to pick up my daughter from the airport last night and I was really bored. I really wanted to scroll on my phone, but the option wasn't even there. And so I found myself window shopping at the airport and looking to see what's on display. It was fine. And I was like, oh, that tequila bottle is really cool. Or that distillery has a really cool logo. Maybe we should go there sometime. And if I'd been scrolling, I would have missed the opportunity to want to experience something new.
Definitely. I think it's like, to go off what you're talking about, we lose situational awareness when we're tunneled in our phone. It's really hard to be present in what's happening around you if you are so focused on, what's happening. And I think what you're saying too, for me, one of my biggest struggles is, oh, I'll have to check something like an email on my phone because I'm in a program or whatever. And then my brain is like, ooh, I wonder what's going on TikTok, or I wonder what's, and then I'm in a spiral of why penguins don't fly. And I'd spend an hour and I have no idea what I'm doing. And my lunch break is over and have to log on for a session. And yeah, it's definitely a time killer. And I think just noticing that is a big deal. I think a lot of people probably shut off that notification of how much screen time they're using on their phone because it is an astounding number, I'm guessing, for
Yeah.
a lot of people.
Yes. So when we think about this shift, and it's hard to blame only technology, it's not the only thing, right? The world has shifted in things too. And there's positive things for technology. I won't say that there isn't. But as we look at and talk about nostalgia from that time travel aspect or this if I could go back, but recognizing that we can't really go back, what are things that we can do to actually try to recreate that feeling, those experiences, however imperfectly it might be.
Well, I think we've talked a lot about like just being present, mindfulness, being really appreciating the moment when we're in it. Not, this doesn't have to be a religious aspect if religion isn't your jam, but I think gratitude in general, like being grateful for the place you are in life and the people that are around you, and just being more present overall, purposely choosing to spend time with family and being present rather than focusing on our phone or getting irritated because your partner's is asking a question when you're doom scrolling, you know.
Yeah, and we kinda talked about that moment of, like, if you can identify a scent, that can provide a moment of comfort. Something that came up for me was And reflecting about my car moment of crying in the car and realizing that I was homesick for a time that I can't go back to, you had asked if I missed something about myself from that time. And one of the things that stands out to me was being more carefree
Yeah.
and maybe being more willing to be more carefree, more authentic, less masking or perfect for the world around us now. And that's something that I can create for myself,
Yeah.
bring a piece of that from my past to my present.
Yeah. The idea, as you were talking, something you had said in a previous session was when your daughter said she didn't want you to tuck her in, and you had a moment of, I didn't know my last time was going to be my last time. I think there's a sense of that in there too, like being aware in the moment that you are making a memory and that this could be important. Like, stop, not to be cliche, but stop and smell the roses, right? The roses may bring you back to this place someday.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a quote. Oh, I want to find it. Um, it was similar around that memory thing. I don't know that I'm gonna get it, but kind of like this sense of we don't know if this is our last moment experiencing something,
Yeah.
to build on what you were saying. And so to really just do everything we can to, you talked about gratitude, appreciate those things and where we're at now.
Yeah, I mean, and to piggyback off what we're talking about a little bit is goal setting, right? If you can't appreciate where you're at now and see where you're at clearly now, how is it possible to set goals to move forward or to realize where you're at so that you have a starting point to move forward? It's a big part of anchoring where you are to where you want to be. And I think that's really important with being present with your mind and like quiet showers.
It makes me want to ask a question when you're thinking about like future goals and orientation for clients. Like in 20 years, what do you want to look back and have nostalgia for?
Yeah. I
Because those
mean,
are the moments that we're going to want to create now, then.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, especially at my age, I don't know.
Stacy, you're
I
not that old.
well,
What message are you sending to people and viewers who are older than you?
well, I'm just thinking in 20 years, my goal is not to be in a nursing home. So that is important. And that is a big reflection on myself, too. Like, what do I need to do to prevent that from happening? You
Yeah,
know? So I think that's really important is thinking about the future and where you want to be gives you a good lead on how to start to get there. And also 20 years is a really big gap, so maybe shortening it down to starting smaller steps so it doesn't feel overwhelming. But having an all overarching goal is really good too.
for sure. But I mean, in 20 years, do you want to remember that you spent the majority of your time looking at a phone screen?
Oh, no,
Do
cuz
you
I
know what I
mean,
mean? Like, it's a very quick no. What a waste of my time.
yeah,
The world is a beautiful place. Let's go experience more of that.
absolutely.
Let's make
Like,
connections with the people in my life that I love and care about, or make connections with new people.
yeah. For sure. In 20 years, I truly want to be driving one of those George Jetson vehicles in the sky just to fly over to Europe really quick. That would be amazing.
You want it to be able to drive itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then you can maybe read a book or experience the people around you or not scroll on your phone while the vehicle drives for you.
Absolutely. I have been reading a lot. That is what I've been trying to do because that was something that scrolling and social media was taking away from me. I was finding myself really bored reading and not connecting. I mean, that might have been like a fallout from graduate school.
Oh,
But
for sure, yes.
I feel like that has been really helpful with being more mindful and being more present and goal setting. Reading about things that intrigue me often allows my brain to start thinking in different ways. So I think that's really cool in a good way. Finding things that work for you to eliminate some of the technology, I think is really important. Going off of what you naturally like and finding ways to use that, I think is really important.
Right? Playing, trying new things, doing new things. And I think just recognizing that we're not going to get that time back. We're never going to fully be able to go back to the 90s or the 80s or whatever time period that you're feeling nostalgic for, right? But what we can do, what we kind of can create is maybe adopting a pace or a way of living that matches that more closely. Where
Yeah.
it's gonna be less screen time, slowing down a little bit. As you mentioned, being present, being mindful, enjoying life one song, one experience, one connection at a time, one thing at a time,
Yeah.
you know?
Start making photo albums again.
I feel called out by that one, Stacy.
Well,
But
not you, I just mean in general.
I really do.
That's
I
just start.
really do. And like, how do I go back? I mean, other than like I said, other than my daughter's graduation and family pictures, I haven't printed pictures in almost 20 years.
Yeah.
It's a long time.
I went through some old boxes and I found a disposable camera that there was pictures on it. I don't even know where it was from or what's on it. So I have to take that to get developed. I don't know how old it is, if I can find a place to take it. But I was really excited. I'm like, what was on this?
On here, right? Maybe
Yeah.
this will feel like kind of a morbid closure to this episode, but I think maybe because I was at a funeral recently, and at funerals they have photo boards. One, let's leave our loved ones with photos to put on the board, and not that they have to go scroll back through your Facebook albums to find photos.
Yeah,
Like,
you got an iPad out there.
right, let's print those pictures, and then also live a life that you can see in those photos.
Yeah. That's beautiful. As you were talking earlier, the song, I think it was Tim McGraw, Live Like You Were Dying. I think that's pretty reminiscent with what we're saying, like having live life while you can, because you never know what's going to happen. I'm
Mhm.
not saying do crazy things that are going to risk your life, but unless
I
that's
like
your
to say
jam.
I
But
I like to say safe risks.
yeah.
Safe risks.
Yeah. But I mean, I think that's the point of what we're both trying to make is enjoying the moment for what it is, a true moment that can become a memory and not getting lost in having the perfect picture to put on your social media, but enjoying what's happening. I always like the action photos anyways as opposed to the perfectly posed ones.
You're one of those people.
Yeah.
Okay, Stacey, nice talking to you again, and I look forward to our next episode.
Sounds good. Bye.
Yeah.